first start with a piece of wood like this. It may be square, it may not. And that one's not that pretty, but this one has really nice grain and detail in it. So this is a cocobolo, so this would probably make a really interesting birdhouse. I also have a number of logs that I may use. Sometimes I leave the bark on, sometimes I mill it off. Depends, but I have a number of logs stored away that I can use for the small birdhouses. And then I bring them over to my drill press, and of course this is very big. I wouldn't use this one for a small birdhouse, but about half this size, you know. And I drill it through with a Forstner bit, not this kind of bit, but a Forstner bit, which is like this. Hook that in there and I drill a hole through, and then that takes a long time. I flip it on its side and I use the Forstner bit to drill the hole for the bird, depending on how deep the hole is that I put in here originally for the cavity. Then I drill another hole with a Forstner bit for the post. The post will go underneath this hole. It would go about here. Then I take and I make the posts and I cut little tiny sections of them off and prepare them, sand those down in the end so there's no burrs or anything. And then I stain, since this is kind of blonde. It may not go with the birdhouse log. It may. The contrast may be great, but if it isn't, then I'll stain it with any, you know, appropriate color stain. And over here at the lathe, I make this specific chuck smaller, and I insert the hole that I just drilled out on the drill press. It goes over the top of this piece, and then I expand that like that. You can see it's expanding. I expand that so it pushes against the inside of the hole and it holds that board in place. So then it, you know, kind of looks like that. And then I bring the tailstock up to the end so it doesn't go flying off and whack me, which isn't fun. Now, there's a hole in a birdhouse. I've drilled out the hole, the entrance hole and the peg hole. I do that before I do it, and I center it so it's centered with that hole that I've drilled in the top. It's easier to do them with the squares than it is with the other ones. In any event, this is now going to go, I'll show you from this side. This hole will go onto that. It just needs a bit of a hit. That's good. And I bring the tailstock in. The tailstock should be centered there. And then I expand. See those jaws open up a bit, that crack? Yeah. Now it's tight and it's pushing out on the inside of the hole on this piece of wood. And then I lathe it into a nice shape. In this case, it's going to be milled down so it has a rounded shape on this end. And the whole thing will be made round. So I'll be cutting off all of these corners all the way around, and then this will come down to a point, or I don't know, whatever I decide, whatever I feel like I like. So for the tops of the birdhouses, I find pieces that are about this thick. I like when they have some bark on them, and or just texture like this, just interesting things. And this is cherry, and you can tell by the look of it, it's really pretty wood. But I find the center. I have to find the center. You can see I marked this out and cut it on the bandsaw. And I found the center and I drilled a hole in it for a post. And that I take and I expand that to go inside this time. Instead of being expanded out, I open this chuck up so it's large enough to accept that peg into that hole, and then I tighten it down so it holds in place and doesn't fall off. And I also bring the tailstock up to secure it so it's set in place. So this is what it looks like when it's put in here. That peg I was telling you about is being tightened down really snugly by this chuck, so it's not going to fall off. In any event, I'm bringing the tailstock up to hold it in place. I have gotten hit by these falling pieces of wood, and it is no fun. So you could assume that both of these pieces, the body and the top, were milled. And now this peg right here, that peg is going to fit right in this hole. Will fit right in that hole, like that. So it's fitting like that, flush. Then I drill a little hole in the top and I put a hook on it and I attach a leather lanyard. But before I do all of this, I do add, sometimes I add a triple E wax to it. I will add a urethane. I have a number of different boiled linseed over here, roasted walnut oil. I have a number of different oils that I will use to make sure that these things are not going to break outside. A lot of the times I will use a mineral oil. That's for dark. It's a mixture of mineral oil and black pumice. And then I have another one that's a carnauba wax, so it's light colored. This is a carnauba wax and mineral oil that I mix together, and that seals it really well. The oil is very good. It's mineral oil, so it's safe for birds and it's durable. And what I do with this is I sand at the same time. I get the coarse sanding down with a heavy duty sandpaper. This is not that heavy, but this is, if I need to go, this is pretty coarse. Normally I can just sand with this because I use my chisels here. I use a carbide bit. That's what this one is. This is a square carbide bit. But I have round ones and pointed ones for all different kinds of details that I can make, and I get it pretty smooth with those, so I don't generally need to use a coarse sandpaper. Sometimes the wood's a little stubborn though. And that in there is 600 grit sandpaper, so that really makes it nice and smooth. So your hummingbird house should be finished quite nicely. Please check out my store at mhstudios.com. Remember, everything is handmade, everything is one of a kind. I'll leave links below, and if you feel like commenting, go ahead. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching my little video on how I make birdhouses. I'll probably do an addendum to this at some point where you can actually watch me making the birdhouses. But until then, you've got a full description of how I do it. Thanks for watching.